Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Reignite Your Soul Podcast. My name is Laura Pahuda. I'm your host, and I am so excited because I have an incredible guest on here today, Joesph Oliver, and he is a really dear friend of mine, and he is a founder of Vibe Mentor, and he helps stressed out entrepreneurs feeling peace and calm through tested and proven mindfulness techniques. And I actually met Joe when I was living in Colombia. And you'll find he isn't Colombian. He doesn't really look Colombian either. You'll notice that if you're watching the YouTube video of this. But he is currently still living in Colombia. But that's actually how I met him. Yeah, clearly not Colombian. And I went through one of his breath work. It's just like, it's kind of a funny story because I'll share it. Because it's just like so interesting how people come into your life. And I'm just so grateful for this like beautiful connection and friendship that we've created. But I posted into, or somebody, Emily, posted into the random like Medellin networking group on Facebook to get her nails done with somebody. And I was just like, yeah, let's go get our nails done. So we went and got our nails done. And Emily was going to your breath work the following day. And yeah, no, yeah, it's so interesting, eh? So yeah, so we got our nails done, and I was like super nervous at that point. It's like still like meeting new people was still kind of nerve-wracking. And so we went and got our nails done, and it was awesome. We went to I can't remember where the vegan place is, right on the main street. Do you know what it is?
Ceres?
Yes. Oh, it's the best place ever. So we went there and we had food. And my favorite was the vegan nachos. They're just like the best. And she was mentioning how she was going to this breathwork thing, and she didn't even really know you either. She was just like, it's another guy from the UK that I connected with, and he's doing like a breathwork ceremony. It's going to be like a couple hours long. And I was kind of like on the fence of going or not. And then I was like, you know what? Fuck it, Laura. Like, just go. Like, whenever you say yes to spontaneous things, like that's truly when the best things come out of the situation. So I was like, I'm going to do it. And at that point too, it was like, you know, like the whole, like, do I want to invest my money into this? Do I not? Like, I could do other things. I could be working. I could be this. And I ended up just saying, fuck it. And I went to this event, and it was incredible because it was your very first in-person holotropic breathwork event in person. And it was beautiful. There was maybe about 8 of us.
8, 9, yeah.
8 or 9 of us. Yeah. And it was so awesome. So I met Joe, obviously just amazing energy. And throughout the ceremony was just like so incredible, like 2 hours worth of just breathing. And the music that you played was so awesome because like brought you through emotions. And I literally basically felt completely disconnected from my body during it, and was like in like a different world, all just from your breath. And I was like, this is so powerful. It actually reminded me when I came out of my Bufo experience. It was just like full that interconnected oneness with everything. That's the exact same feeling I felt coming out of the breath work. And I was just so blown away by it. So that's how I met Joe. And we just created this like beautiful friendship over the last, I guess, year and a half now. And I'm just so excited for him to be on here because he truly is an expert when it comes to breath work and different stuff on mindfulness. So welcome. Super excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's nice. It's been a while.
It has been.
Every time we talk, we're always like, it's been too long. It's not going to be that long this time. And then it ends up being however long, but it is what it is. But it's great.
Yeah. This time was actually a shorter one because we connected back in March when I was in Canmore. So this was actually like,
it's good for us.
Good. It is. Yeah. But it's nice. Just like, that's what I love most about the friendships I have now is like, they don't need to be like an everyday texting or even like once a week or like whatever. It's like, no, when we feel the pull to reach out and connect, and when it aligns, then we allow it to flow. And like, I know there's been a few times where we're like, let's connect. And then like both of us get busy, or one person gets busy and it never happens, but it's like never having that attachment to when it happens, because whenever it does, it's just like so beautiful and so perfect.
Exactly. And not taking it personally, because, you know, people are doing their thing. Just got to let them do their thing and do your thing. And that's all what it's about, really.
Exactly. Yeah. Just watching everybody just thriving in their lives, and also hitting their shit. Because we all hit our shit.
This is true. This is a harsh reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so Joe, I would love it if you would just share a little bit more about your story, because obviously you were doing like stuff on yachts and stuff before, and this completely, like what you're doing now wasn't on your radar at all, but you've really allowed yourself to kind of flow with everything. And life has just brought you this like beautiful, beautiful understanding of the impact that you're here to make on this planet, and the way that you're able to take your gifts and really help people. So I'd love it if you would just share a little bit more about your story so everybody can get to know you a little bit more.
Absolutely. So it's a little bit crazy. It happens so fast. It's probably one of the craziest things. And maybe some people listening to this can resonate. I'd been a chef for 12 years. So I was in this industry for a long time, and I never really loved it. There were certain aspects of it I enjoyed, but over time I kind of got more and more I resented it more and more, if you will. And I really wanted to find something that I truly wanted to do. And I used to follow these people online that traveled the world and had these cool businesses. And I always wanted that, to live that more nomadic lifestyle. But I could just never make it happen. And I was always afraid to take that leap. And I also felt like, I guess deeper down, that I had, like, there was more like a reason for me to be here. Like there was something that I was supposed to do that was beyond like my kind of wants and desires, if you will. There was something else there. And like, maybe some people feel like that right now. And I desperately wanted to find out what that was. And I'd heard on I think it was an audiobook or a podcast about this thing called ayahuasca. And I was working as a yacht chef, like you mentioned before, at the time. So I kind of got this lifestyle, like, but about half of it. So I was traveling and I had that nomadic aspect, and I was making what most people would consider to be good money, but I was very much a slave to someone else's time. And I really wanted to be on my own time. And I wasn't giving value in the way that I wanted to give value. It's nice when people tell you you cooked an amazing meal, but it doesn't change their life.
So right? Much more than just the income.
Yeah. And you probably eat thousands of meals a year, roughly. So yeah, it was not for me, let's say. So I ended up coming to Colombia and going to an ayahuasca retreat, and that was in 2019, with the intention of trying to find out what it was that I wanted to do, or what the reason was that I was here. And it kind of gave me some indicators and kind of pointed me in the right direction, but it wasn't very tangible. It was like, you're going to work with energy and help people with some stuff, and that's why you're here, to raise the consciousness of the planet. I was like, great, thanks. That was really helpful. I just went through hell to find that out.
You're like, can I have some more information, please?
Yeah. But really what that retreat was about was really just cleaning out all the rubbish, all the crap that was in there, so I could gain that clarity. And it kind of propelled me forward. And that's what I always say is, like, I'm sure most people know what plant medicines are. Either they've taken them or they're curious about them, that are listening to this right now. And I really saw it as a catalyst for my own growth. And I was like, I've stumbled across like a cheat code to life here. And it's not a cheat code, because you really do some serious work, but the results that you get externally are so fast that it's almost as good as a cheat code. It's the closest thing to it, I think. And fast forward about 3 or 4 weeks later, I was actually in Australia visiting my sister, and I had a broken leg during all of this time. So I broke my leg on the yacht. I won't go into that story. It was terrible. I'm very lucky to have a leg. And then I had all this stuff booked, like a fasting retreat where I didn't eat for 7 days, and then flying to Colombia and drinking ayahuasca in the jungle, and then going to Australia on the other side of the planet. And I did all of this with a broken leg, and the doctor was like, you're an idiot, don't go. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it. I just knew that's what I had to do. So I traveled around with this cast on my leg on crutches. And I got to Australia, and a couple of months before, I'd done a few of these breathwork sessions, like holotropic, like you said. And there was a variation of that you could do online, which I now do with my clients. I have my own kind of methods and techniques that are a little bit different, but for the most part, it shares similarities. And just an hour breathing was more profound than all of the ayahuasca ceremonies that I had done. And I basically, and you hear this terminology, I received information, or I had a download, if you will, where it told me I was going to be a breathwork coach, or something told me, whether it's from my subconscious, or whatever. And just to give you guys some context to that, number one, if you quieten the mind enough, you can kind of get access to things that are already there, to knowledge that is already there. But for the most part, the mind is too noisy, so you can't hear that information. You can't receive it, right? And then secondly, if you alter your state of consciousness, you can also gain access to things that you previously were blind to. That's why these plant medicines, or this kind of special kind of breathing and all these different modalities are really, really useful and really, really powerful. And to be honest with you, any kind of healing modality, if you will, that's worth its salt, requires you to be in some kind of altered state. And if you're not kind of utilizing this to whatever degree, you're really missing out on a lot. You're really, really missing out on a lot, because you're just doing everything from the point of the conscious mind, which is to a degree limited. So it's so useful to in whatever sense, to get into these altered states. So that's what I did. And then I had this realization that I was going to be a breathing coach. And it was a bit of a shock, because it never crossed my mind. I didn't even know what that was. I was like, what does that even mean? But it was so profound, and there was so much clarity that it was just unmistakable. I couldn't ignore it. I just couldn't ignore it. And actually, when I started to follow that path, everything started to fall into place really quickly and to a degree effortlessly. The only time there was resistance and there was effort was when I resisted the path. So I just kept following that. And then fast forward, it's really actually not been that much time. I'm now considered to be a breathing expert. I didn't know anything about breathing when I started. I just learned from books, went to seminars and found other coaches and invested and did all this kind of stuff. Now I'm an expert because I followed what felt right. And and here I am in Colombia. And now I have a full-time business, Vibe mentor, and it's incredible how stuff can change.
It's incredible, eh? Yeah, such an awesome story. I think so many people can relate to that, like that feeling that there has to be something more out there, but not knowing what it is. And I know my ayahuasca experience was that same thing, where it kind of like gave me all of this stuff that was like, oh my gosh, like I meant to be a healer. I meant to do this. I'm like, I don't even know how to do that. But like the cool thing is that when we can go through these experiences and just have that trust and just allow ourselves to move along that path, all of the right things come in for us to get where we want to go. And I love how you mentioned too about becoming an expert in that, say, 1.5 to 2 years, because it's the same thing for me. And for me, it's been really awesome understanding that when we're really passionate about something, we love learning about it. That it's probably the same for you, like 24/7. I feel like I'm literally learning about everything around what I'm meant to do. It's like, you don't have to work to do it. It's like, you'll literally just have people come into your life and you'll have conversations about it or this and that. And you learn so much in such a rapid, accelerated way that you just start moving. It's like, you have no choice but to move in that way.
Yeah. And I think like it actually hurt my growth when in the beginning, because and you know what I'm talking about now, Laura, like imposter syndrome came up. Who am I teaching? Who am I to be charging money for this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And what I realized is, like, when I just let it flow, it's like, if you ever watched that movie Limitless, right? And with Bradley Cooper, when he takes that brain drug and he can use 100% of his brain power. There's like situations in that movie where he's like walking a corridor and he gets into a fight. And he's like, I don't know how to fight. And he's like, wait a minute, maybe I do. And then it's just like this YouTube video he watched 10 years ago, and this old Bruce Lee video he watched when he was a kid, and like this other stuff. And he's like, oh, maybe I do. And it's like, one thing my old mentor told me is like, the best way to learn is to teach. So that is how, like, a lot of us, like, it seems impossible on the outside. It's like, how could you become so proficient in a subject in such a short amount of time? So number one is start teaching to people. And it puts you into a different state, into an authority state, and into a more expansive state where you kind of let things come in and flow out. And so sometimes, like, I remember, not so much anymore, but in the beginning, I would watch recordings of me coaching people and I would take notes of what I was saying. And it was almost like, I don't remember me saying that.
Yeah.
All my best stuff. And this is one of the reasons like my breathwork methods are more effective than anyone's on the planet is because, and I can say that unarrogantly because they didn't come from me.
Mm-hmm.
So I teach something called the core method, which all my clients learn. It's a non-negotiable. And this is like a breathwork meditation. So it's a combination that they learn every single day. And it's like, we've literally had this year alone, we've had people coming off anxiety medication they've been on for 14 years in just a few weeks, people getting over like persistent depression in literally weeks, crippling anxiety in less than a month. The results are insane. And the reason it's so effective is because I didn't think of it. It came from being in an altered state. And it was like, again, like a download. I was just sitting there. I managed to get into a pretty deep state of meditation. And I was just like, here you go. And I was like, oh my God, I got to write this down. This is amazing. Like crazy. This is where all the best stuff comes from. So the information is already out there.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. I love that. And would you want to say more about you said the core method? Because then like, I think like, especially right now, there's so much, if you understand what's going on astrologically and on the planet, everything is like, there's so many people that are maybe haven't learned how to surrender, to allow the changes to come in that are meant to come into people's lives. So they're feeling this resistance and this fear of what is potentially to come. So they could be feeling a lot of that crippling anxiety, like you said, or these undesirable emotions where they're kind of being like invited to make changes, yet maybe there is that little resistance. So what are some of the things that you do in that core method that can potentially help people who are in that state?
If you like, I don't know if I can share my screen. I can actually like show you and take you through like kind of what happens in each part of the method.
Yeah, for sure. You should be good to go right now.
Okay,
I'm so happy you had that handy.
Yeah, so this is the core method, right? So people are watching this on YouTube can see, I'll explain as best I can for everyone listening on audio. So there's 4 sections to it. There's 3 sections that require practical application. And then the 4th section is the result that you get. So it's an acronym. Again, I'm not clever enough to think of a cool acronym. This is why it didn't come from me. So core is CORE, create, open, release, evolve. So the first thing we do, and this is why like sometimes people do meditation. Most people do guided meditations, right? Which is fine. And they can be useful. I use them sometimes, very often. It's kind of more just when I want to chill. So the problem with guided, it's like always riding a bike with stabilizers and never learning how to ride without stabilizers. Okay. And then people do breath work or they do meditation, but they don't put them together. And I always tell people like breath work and meditation, it's like wine and cheese. It's like peanut butter and jelly. It's like, they are so complementary to each other. It's ridiculous. And like, if you use breath work with your meditation, you're going to amplify your meditate. You're going to 10x it. You're going to 100x it. So this is how like people with no experience can actually get into these really deep states of meditation, the same as like a Buddhist monk or someone that's been practicing for decades. And they can do that within days sometimes, just by learning how to breathe properly. Okay. And all meditation modalities that work require some kind of breathing technique anyway. So you can kind of start to see the similarities here. So what we do first is we create an altered state of consciousness via heavy breathing. Okay. And this is essential because like I said earlier, like any healing modality that's worth its salt requires you to be in an altered state. Okay. And then we go into what I call opening. And I call it open because it's literally like opening the door to the subconscious. And this is really useful for a few reasons. And I'm going to explain why in a second, because release part is the most important. And essentially with 1 and 2, with create and open, we're essentially setting ourselves up for the perfect meditation. Okay. So we via heavy breathing, and I'm not going to tell you the exact technique I use because people pay me a lot of money to learn these techniques. And there's a couple of other nuance points where we clean and decalcify the pineal gland at the same time and stuff like this. So we create an altered state of consciousness through heavy breathing, and you get all of the physical benefits. You increase your lung capacity and the respiratory system, and increasing CO2 tolerance and stress tolerance, blah, 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 blah. You don't really have to worry about that. It's like really the reason you want to breathe heavily is to alter your state. Okay. And we can always do this, not just during our meditation, but throughout the day. We never have to feel how we don't want to feel if we know how to breathe right, okay? Because if you're feeling a certain way, like right now, I'm talking, so I'm excited. So I'm actually breathing more shallowly into my chest. Like, okay, this is fun. So if I want to breathe calmer, I'll start breathing through my nose, move it down more to the diaphragm, and slow the breath down. That's a huge mistake I see with a lot of people. It's like, and I see it that you see Instagram posts and people, actually professionals talking about, it's like, breathe deeply. Don't breathe deeply normally. That's the worst way you could possibly breathe, like from the day to day, but we can talk about that later. But for this, we want to breathe deeply. We want to breathe heavily because we're changing and altering our state. And then we go into open, which is essentially breath holding. So what happens when you hold your breath for a prolonged period of time is you put your body in an incredible amount of stress. Okay, so you go into high range beta and really high range beta brainwaves, and you're essentially denying yourself the right to breathe, denying yourself the right to live. And this is why it's so powerful, because once you start breathing again, the body will compensate. So it's going to flood the brain, because it has to keep the brain alive when you start breathing again, with blood, i.e. with oxygen. Okay. And you're going to release a lot of endorphins and stuff like that. And this is actually going to lower your brain waves. Okay. So if you do, ironically, it sounds counterintuitive. If you breathe heavily, then hold your breath. When you go into a meditation, the body's going to compensate, and you're actually going to go into that meditation from a place of alpha brain waves, perhaps even lower. So you're going to get into theta and delta really, really quickly. So most people start meditating, they're in beta or high range beta. So it's going to take you 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe an hour, maybe more to get into like alpha or lower. And so by the time you finish your meditation, that was actually only when it was getting beneficial. Mm-hmm. So this is why we want to combine breath work with meditation. And then the biggest thing I can give you guys right now for meditation is, notice how it's called release. So I'm not focusing on the present moment or anything like that. That will come as a byproduct of letting go. And that's really what it's about. And I would say that anyone who understands this concept either consciously or they do it unknowingly, these are the most successful people on the planet. And I don't mean like financially, I just mean for happiness wise. People that understand how to let go. Okay. And again, all these different healing modalities, whether it's ayahuasca or breath work, what they're doing is they're releasing things that no longer serve you. They're letting go of things. So when you learn how to do this consciously and creating an optimal space for this every single day during your meditation, it's just like one foot in front of the other, and you're just walking up the hill and you're just throwing out all these rocks that are in your rucksack that you don't need. Mm-hmm. And this is how people are able to like really elevate and change their life in a much shorter space of time. Because when I say letting go, you could let go of a thought, be present for a moment, or you could let go of a limiting belief that you didn't even know you had because you're in an altered state and you're more likely to become aware of it. You could just let go of some negative emotion that you've been stored in your liver for 20 years. And you just have no idea how this is going to show up in your life. So that's why I say this leads to evolve, to your evolution, to the evolution of your consciousness, if you will. And this is why breathwork can be so beneficial, so powerful, and especially when you combine it with meditation, which is what not a lot of people don't do.
That's huge. Sense. Yeah, no, that totally. Thank you so much for explaining that. And it truly does. It's more than just breathing, right? Like that's why having a mentor doing this is so powerful. And I know for me personally, when you start doing, if you've never learned how to surrender or release, even after doing some plant medicine, our bodies are so programmed to just latch onto everything and want that control, that when you start feeling your body releasing, even in breath work, there becomes a sense of fear. So you want to stop, because your body will then go to the comfort zone of normality. So having that coach there to be able to keep encouraging you to keep breathing and to keep moving through those phases that you shared is like so important. And I loved what you shared about how it's all about non-attachment, right? It's about releasing. And that's huge, because the thing is our brains always want, right? But we don't realize that we can't have any of that stuff until we release all of that baggage that's there. It's literally like we're like trying to run, like in the like those workouts where you're like, you have the band around you and somebody's like holding the band and you're like trying to run.
Yeah.
And you're like running. You can't fucking go anywhere because the person's hanging onto the band. That's basically what it's like. And then as soon as you release those things, it releases it. And then you're catapulted into that shit, whether you want to go or not, because we are like programmed inside of our souls to have like a plan for our life. And it's not until we can release that stuff that we can actually go and discover and explore all of those beautiful things that are out there waiting for us.
And this is so true, Laura. And this, what a lot of people are doing is they're using just brute force and willpower to try and get what they want.
Yeah.
And everyone has their own experience of life and what reality is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really hard to grasp sometimes that, like, for example, like what I think is a 10 right now out of 10 for feeling good might be a 4 for Laura. And if I somehow put my consciousness into Laura, I'd be like, whoa, this is crazy. And vice versa. Like, you know, you could put your consciousness into someone else and they could feel so bad that you're like, how do you get out of bed? And they seem on the surface happy. And that's really, when you start chipping away, when you start letting go and releasing, what you notice is like you get to what you thought was a 10. And then that becomes your 6 in 6 months' time.
Yeah.
And then, and as far as I know, there's no cap to this stuff. It just keeps going. And especially in the beginning, this can be scary because for the most part, a lot of us are numb. And like Laura said, we've learned how to kind of ignore everything that's inside. And when we start letting it up, you're like, oh my God, I'm so fucked up.
Yeah.
And you don't want to continue the journey. And that is why, like Laura said, having a coach is essential, because they're going to hold you accountable and make sure that you keep executing. Because the problem is, you could have the right tools right now as you're listening to us, and you're like, what am I doing wrong? You're banging your head against the wall. And oftentimes it's just, you just didn't execute consistently enough for a long enough period of time.
Yeah.
And that often is actually the difference between people that are successful. You don't have to have everything dialed in and be perfect to make huge changes and get really good results in your life. You just have to execute and be consistent. And the more that you do that, the more that you realize you go, okay, I need to trim the fat here. I need to take this thing out. I need to start implementing this other thing. And the right tools and stuff will start appearing on their own. You don't have to put any conscious effort into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think maybe too, like, if you could explain a little bit more about why people benefit from this, because I know, like, it's like, as a society, we focus so much on creating habits around our physical well-being, right? And like when you talk to people, they're like, yeah, like they're focusing on going to the gym 5 times a day. But I'm like, if we could shift societal's mentality to really focusing on like the different aspects of the mental health, the emotional health, the spiritual health, like our energetic health, and actually started incorporating those habits and integrating those things into our everyday life. It's just like there's been a lack of education around all of those other different areas, which it takes that balance within all of them for humans to actually thrive in the way that we inside, we know it's possible, but we just don't quite know how to get there.
It's so true. So there's a few different elements that you want to be focusing on, and it's cliche, but it's true. So most people, like you said, just focus on the body, but you need to focus on the mind too, and you need to focus on spirit. And even if you're not spiritual, you still need to focus on spirit. And what will happen is, like, I could sit here and talk to you all day about like the physical and scientific and all the studies to do with breath work and what's happening in the body. But the fact of the matter is, if you were to execute on those things that I told you and you started doing a breathwork meditation a day, even if you're not spiritual, you will undoubtedly start having spiritual experiences. So it's like, it's one aspect of our being, if you will, that cannot be ignored. And the reason I would arguably say, like, they're all important, it's the most important is because it's the only part of you that's not limited. Is that spiritual aspect of ourself. The body has limitations, the mind has limitations, but the spirit does not. And so, and people kind of get lost with spirituality. You can very practically apply it to your life and use it to your advantage. So if you're not spiritual, that doesn't mean that you have to have a bunch of crystals in your window and be blowing sage around your house and kind of all that kind of stuff, right? You can use it very, very practically to your own advantage and take it as far as you want. Okay, but it's an important aspect, and if you're ignoring it, there's going to be some incongruencies in your life there. And the other one that people always forget is purpose, that we started off at the start of the call about. So you can have everything dialed in, but if you're not on purpose, if you're not living the life that you're supposed to live, you're not going to feel as fulfilled as you could. And it's really about stepping up and stepping in. And we can all do it. We can all do it, but it's terrifying. That's why most people don't. Like kind of Laura said earlier, you talk about like releasing and letting go and all of that kind of stuff. It can feel like you're going to fall into oblivion when you do that. It's like if you open Pandora's box, it's just never going to stop. And it's like you're holding onto a cliff and you feel like you're going to fall onto the rocks. But what actually happens is when you let go, you're like, oh, I'm just standing here, and you can just turn around and walk away. And that's real freedom right there. And but it requires faith to take that leap.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think too, you mentioned a really key point about where you truly just have to experience it, because I think it's another one of those things in society, and I know I get caught up in this as well, is I feel like we lean on science, we lean on logic as a crutch, but that's still an attachment, right? It's like we just attach to that. It's still like another sense of like
the mind and the ego, they're so clever, so smart. Like sometimes the stuff it convinces me of, it's just like then I realize like hours or days later, and I'm like, you did it again.
You got me.
Yeah, you're good. Like sometimes, like even like let's say for example, like I'm not a morning person, okay? And they always say it's like I want to wake up and feel enthusiastic and love what I do. I still wake up and I'm always just like I could stay in bed. I love sleeping, like, and I'm on purpose and doing what I love, right? And I still want to stay in bed. I'm totally cool with that.
I'm the same way.
Sometimes people are like, okay, you got to work out, and it's like, no, you don't have to work out today. You did it yesterday. It's totally fine. Just relax. Like self-care is important too. Remember to take it easy. It's not all about like discipline. And I'm like, yeah, do you know what? You're right. Okay, I should take it easy today. And then and it's like, why don't you have like, don't be so strict with your diet. Like eat something tasty. You have a piece of cake or something. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I deserve it. I start eating. I'm like, damn it, you got me again. So you got to try and navigate that. And the one way that you do that is by becoming more conscious in the way and bringing awareness to these things. And it's a process, and it's never ending, but it's kind of fun. The way that you do that is through your meditation, through your breathwork practices. It's training for the mind, the same way that most of us like want to train the body, you've got to train the mind as well.
Yeah, I was the same way where I used to feel like that, because they're always like, you have to be up at 4 a.m. and you have to do this and this and this, and I would do it, and I'm like, this is exhausting. Like I was so miserable, and I'm like, I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned is like, there's no right or wrong to do anything. It's just about finding what feels good to us, but then also like having those inner dialogue and that inner conversation within yourself and becoming aware of the intentions behind what you're doing is huge. Because once you become aware, like in the moment, like you can literally catch yourself and shift and pivot the intention behind it. And sometimes it's still the same action, but it's a completely different energy behind it.
Big word you just used there, intention. Like oftentimes we're trying to do stuff and we're like forcing it with willpower, but our intention is to like maybe not do that thing. We wonder why we have so much resistance to it. So what do you do before a workout or before you're going to meditate? You're like, I don't want to meditate. I don't want to do this. I'm too busy. I don't have time. I don't feel like it. I feel tired, blah, blah, blah. So that's an intention. It may not be conscious, but you're telling your brain what you want, which is to not do that thing. So your brain is giving you what you want. It's like, here's the resistance. Here's the procrastination. Here's the distraction, whatever it might be. So again, intention and awareness, they're very intertwined. You got to have awareness so you can change the dialogue and change the intention. And intention's so powerful, and it's not guaranteed, let's say, but it's definitely going to tilt the scales in your favor. So I like this. This is quite new for me, actually. I'm just setting intentions like all day. When I brush my teeth, let's just be present. Before I come on a podcast with Laura, let's offer as much value as I can and enjoy it. Right? Intention. Let's crush this workout. Let's relax. Like big one, right? When you go to chill, and you're like, oh, I should be doing this. I haven't worked hard enough to relax. Like, make your intention to fully relax and go into that process and actually gain the benefits from it.
Yeah. It's like that shift from like just being in that subconscious programming where you're just on autopilot. You're just going through your everyday routine, right? So it's about like literally calling yourself back. Do you have any suggestions for people how they can bring like more awareness and more presence? I have some stuff too that I can share too, but I'm just curious as to some things that you offer for your clients or for people just to become more aware when they're in that kind of autopilot of that routine, because it's natural that like we wake up on the same side of the bed, our alarm clock goes off at the exact same time, we do the exact same morning routine, we go to work, we see the same coworkers if you're still in working, or maybe you're behind your computer, and then you have like your meals the same times, like you go to bed, like usually everything is pretty routine for people. So what are some ways in which people can kind of break out of that conditioning and start becoming more aware so that they can actually be more present to set those intentions before going into the everyday actions? Because it takes like a shift to be able to do that.
Great question. First thing I would say, I'm going to share my screen again.
Yeah, go for it.
People are going to think I'm crazy.
This is awesome. I love it.
People are going to think.
It satisfies my visual brain.
So this is my habit tracker, right? So this is how I track all my habits. So if you do this because you think you should like track habits and like be meticulous like this, don't do it. If you think it's fun and you like it, do it. So it's not the action itself, it's the place it's coming from. But what I wanted to show you is this blue day. So occasionally I throw in what I call a flow day. Okay. And basically I'm not obligated to do anything. And the idea is just to connect with flow state and just do what feels right. So it's, because a lot of us, especially if they're listening to this podcast, they're probably like higher performers and they're very disciplined and they want to be productive. We get way too caught up in that one side of thinking, that one side of the brain. So you kind of want to let that more flow side come out, the more feminine side, and just go with it, right? And it like they can be the most productive days. And what you'll find is, for the most part, you'll end up doing like 95% of the stuff that's on here anyway, but you'll do a load of other stuff that's fun and you'll enjoy it more. And then over time, you kind of want to allow flow into your life more and more. So that's the first thing that I'll share. So good. Second thing is just this thing.
Yes, it's the best tool ever.
Just set reminders on your phone and just say breathe or presence or whatever word resonates and to go off. And then this is like, I'll give you the easiest presence hack ever right now. Easiest. So everyone can do this that's listening, okay? You're going to just breathe in really slowly, and then you're going to pause at the top of the inhale. And notice when you pause and hold the breath for a second, just look around. Just notice how there's like almost no noise. That's it. So just breathe in. That's the easiest way to find presence. Just shuts up. Even if you're really frantic and busy, it still works.
So good. I love that. So
3 things right there.
So good. So what was the program that you said you use? Daily Habit Tracker? Did you just create that yourself?
Yeah, my friend created it for me. So that's clients get.
And there are apps and stuff too, I think, that are just called like Habit Tracker and stuff like that. So just like Google shit, guys. Like be resourceful.
There's a great habit tracker called. Let me find the name of it. Habit Share.
Habit Share.
And I don't use it anymore. I used to give it to clients, but I use that now. But yeah, you can put all your habits, and you can also see when other people, I don't use it anymore, but you can share it with friends and have accountability. So if you've got a friend,
perfect,
you can follow each other and then agree on and share your habits and stuff like that. More about like finding the biggest ROI habits for you rather than trying to do a million things.
Love that.
You know what I mean?
Which comes back to intention again, right? Like it's not about more, it's about doing less with more intention, right? It's like, it's not about the number of friends you have, it's about the quality of friends you have.
Exactly. Yeah. You can apply that to a lot of different aspects of life for sure.
Yeah. So the habit tracker, and then also setting reminders on your phone is a great way.
Yeah. And with the habit tracker, I was kind of really emphasizing that point of just flowing more. So it's almost like ironically not necessarily tracking your habits, but you want to get that structure and discipline, especially in the beginning, because it's like the stabilizers. And then, but once you're doing stuff, it's a habit, right? You're just doing it without thinking about it. It doesn't require much conscious effort. Then you can start to implement more days where you flow. And I know you're big on stuff like that, Laura, like flowing and kind of just feeling it. And
yeah,
that requires a degree of, like, again, awareness and connection with one's mind and body. And it takes time. It takes time.
It does,
So,
yeah. Another big thing that I'd love to mention too with all of this stuff is it takes like patience, right? You'll notice that when Joe has shared a few times, he's self-coaching himself throughout his day, right? And any high performer, that's a huge skill to be able to learn, as to how to self-coach yourself. And that's why I found, for me, having mentors in the beginning is you learn from the mentors the questions that they ask you and the stuff, and then you start applying it to yourself, right? So asking yourself these questions throughout your everyday day, you're basically having like internal chatter between like your higher self and yourself now, like all the time. Right. It's like challenging who you are to become that better version of yourself, but coming from that place of love and compassion and having patience, right? Because on those days when you first start building habits, like start small, right? You don't need to be doing like a huge, massive change, everything all at once. It's like pick one thing and then start integrating that into your way of being until it becomes just like brushing your teeth every morning. And then that way you can really start building on it. Or another way that I've learned too, which I think is from Atomic Habits, the book. And I haven't even read that book yet. I actually bought it and I haven't read it yet, but I did hear somebody else mention from that book, which is what made me buy it, was called stacking. So if you're trying to make habits, you pair it with something that you've already integrated into your routine. So if you say want to start taking a big deep breath, pair it with brushing your teeth in the morning, because brushing your teeth is already a habit that you have. So as you're brushing your teeth, you're looking in the mirror, then do your breath, because you're already integrated that one action into your everyday routine. So then stacking on another one as you're doing it is a great way to be able to continue building that on. And it's going to be easier for you to remember, or stick a sticky note up on your mirror, or whatever you need to do, or set that alarm on your phone to start being able to integrate those things. But being patient with yourself in the process of learning these things, and talking to yourself, I know for me, like as if you were a child again, because we all have these deep inner traumas from our childhood that a lot of them are coming up right now. And I know for me personally, I used to be so hard on myself. Like I was so mean to myself without even knowing it. Like, oh, like, how did you not know that? Like just so mean. And it's like, it doesn't serve anything. So that's also, it's just a practice. Like we're literally right now, we're transitioning into an entirely new way of being, which exactly like my tagline on this podcast, like expanding our minds and opening our hearts to an entirely new way of being. And I would love it, Joe, if you could mention a little bit more about the masculine energy and the feminine energy. You mentioned the masculine, like that a lot of people try to force things, and the feminine is the more flow, yet understanding that within men and women, we both have the masculine and feminine energies. So right now it's a lot of people starting to heal their, say, wounded masculine or wounded feminine, to coming into that higher version of themselves within those two kind of those energies.
Great question, great subject. So the first thing I'd say is everyone, for the most part, has a predominant energy, but that does not mean that you can't use the other energy regularly on a daily basis as well. And also, like, people kind of hide their energy, because like both like more extreme or like powerful versions of masculine and feminine kind of get criticized in society. So it's like, if you're too masculine, it's like aggressive or something, and you like whatever. And if you're too feminine, then you're weak, which is just completely ridiculous.
Or you're like too sensual or sexual, or like you're a slut, or you're like, there's so many different things. Yeah.
So many with both. And it's so hilariously ridiculous.
Yeah.
So like, whatever your energy is, and you already know it, like as I'm talking, everyone knows what it is. It's just like, embrace that as much as possible, and just let it flow out. When you kind of block those energies, like you block abundance and manifestation. And people forget about like energy in regards to that. So it's like you can do your journal and your little visualization and all that kind of stuff, but if you've got energetic blocks, like nothing's going to come. Nothing's going to come. And it comes down to like masculine and feminine are also their sexual energies. And this is really where the blockages come from. So you got to let that energy up and out. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be like sexual to every person that you meet or over sexualized or whatever. You can use that energy. It's a deeper energy. It's a more powerful energy. You can use that energy and apply it to anything in life, to anything that you want to achieve. So I think talking more specifically about men now, like a really important thing is semen retention. And guys either don't do it and say it's ridiculous and don't see the benefit of it, or they are too overbearing with it. And they're like, if I come, then like my life's over and like nothing good's gonna happen and I lose all my energy or whatever. It's just balance, you know, just be conscious and aware of it and make sure you're with partners that understand this kind of stuff and also have a good energy, because when you share that energy with someone, like it's incredibly powerful and you're taking on their energy and also everyone that they've been with. So you want to make sure you're again with quality people all of the time. How to cultivate those energies. Like we were talking just before we started recording, you were talking about like you being kind of studying and learning a lot more and becoming an expert with chakras and stuff like that, just making sure they're aligned. It's actually not as hard as people think. I think that's one of the biggest things is like people people get stuck on the hero's journey. It's like, I'm so effed up. I have all this stuff to work on and my chakras are misaligned and I don't have control over my mind and I'm not in the life situation I want. I have all this crazy trauma that I've got to heal. It's like, why couldn't you sort that out in a couple months and then move on to something more expansive? So it really comes down to your belief systems, what you believe to be true, right? Like I just mentioned about guys and the sexual energy. If you believe that you ejaculate and then you lose everything, you've lost it. But if you think it's all right, it's all right. So it really comes down, I always talk to my clients about what I call my belief bubble. So it's really like, you almost want to, you can be careful with this to a degree, but you almost kind of want to live in your own disillusionment, like this ridiculous kind of world where you just, the way you speak to yourself is just incredible and almost arrogant. And the stuff you decide to believe to and the beliefs you decide to buy into just serve you incredibly.
Yeah.
And the problem is most people don't do that enough. So it's like, yes, you can do your morning ritual, your routine, but it's like, how are you talking to yourself for the rest of the day? What are you thinking like for the rest of the day? Are you connected to your vision, to your end goal? Are you feeling abundant the whole day? And this just comes down again to awareness and consciousness of what you're saying, thinking, doing, and feeling. And that's why like little things like we have a phone, guys, you just put reminders. And then over time, it will feel tiring at first, but it will get easier and easier and easier. And then what you'll find is like, instead of catching negative thoughts, you'll catch positive thoughts that you didn't consciously decide to think. Like, oh, you're a really good person. You're like, what?
You're like, who was that?
And once you're there, like it's game over. You're done. It's easy. You've already done the work. So don't get caught up in the hero's journey, because people just think that they have to keep, and it's a never-ending process. It's not what I'm saying, but at some point it becomes more expansive. That's all I'm
Start
saying.
enjoying the process.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be this hard, arduous journey of continuous healing and just awful, horrible stuff. It can just be fun.
Yeah, you get to choose. There's so many people that are on like the personal growth journey, and they're just so focused on the shadow and like all the stuff that's wrong that it's like it just starts consuming them, right? You see that so often, and you get so hard on yourself, just downward spiral. It's like you've really got to learn how to just see it and then have that higher version of what that, taking the like lessons, the golden chunks, and then really pivoting it to keep moving you forward and just keep going with that. I love what you mentioned about the semen retention. And that stuff. Do you have a resource where people can, like a book that you read, or where you gain that information? Because we don't have time to talk about it on this podcast, but I feel like there may be people that are interested in that, because it's probably something that a lot of men haven't heard of, and the benefits of it. So even just Google it. Or do you have any like resources that I can put in the show notes for this?
Yeah. So there's something called the multi-orgasmic man, which is like a Taoist kind of downloadable PDF about like all the Taoist techniques.
Okay.
Which is super, super useful. Take it with a pinch of salt. But that's incredibly useful. And then it's not just about that, but you kind of some books like The Way of the Superior Man by David Yader is a really, really useful book. There's a couple of others that I can't remember off the top of my head. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube and things like that. If you type in NoFap, again, it doesn't really get to the core of like what's really happening, but like the multi-orgasmic man does. And again, kind of like breath work and plant medicine, it's like another superpower that you can have. And it's hilarious because most guys don't do it. So it's just like, it just helps you. But this is key, okay? A lot of guys do it, but they don't know how to move that energy up and out or transmute it. That's very, very important too. You can do that with the breath, squeezing the pelvic floor, the perineum, and just kind of visualizing that energy moving up. And you'll start, like, if you've been doing it for 3 or 4 days, you'll literally feel the energy going through. Okay. And it's incredible. And it's a game changer for a lot of guys, because it's almost like you've been playing life with a handicap since you were 12 and you didn't even realize. It's
yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
And
that goes for women too, with that breathing too, when it comes to intimacy.
Absolutely. It's a bit different for women. In fact, they don't have to retain in the same way. If anything, it's more about
releasing.
Yes, it's like almost the opposite.
Yeah.
Opposites attract, polar opposites or whatever. So
there
are some differences like that, but yeah, it's a game changer for both parties.
And that's also like a topic that we don't usually talk about in society, yet it's so important. So I will probably get an expert in here on the podcast to talk about more stuff on sexuality, both with men and women at some point as well, because I know that it's stuff that I've kind of been diving more into as well, and it makes like a huge impact on that overall like well-being of your health.
For men, there's a really good guy on YouTube who really speaks the truth, called I think it's called Sexual Kung Fu. So definitely check him out.
Sexual Kung Fu.
I learned a lot of stuff from that guy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so back to breath work.
Oh yes.
Back to breath work.
All right.
Yeah. So why don't you just tell us a little bit more about what it is that you're offering right now when it comes to breath work?
So I've gone back to some more one-on-one coaching right now, just because I've noticed in group coaching situations, because I had so many clients at the start of the year, I was like, I had to do group. So I've actually kind of reduced the amount of clients that I'm taking, and I'm just taking one-on-one, which I really, really like. So I basically just hold your hand for the whole process, and we work together for, depending on, everyone has a unique situation, right? It might be 8 weeks, might be maximum 12. But I've actually started reducing that as well, just because I found my clients get results too quickly. It's
so
crazy.
good problem to have.
It's a good problem
I love that.
So 6 to 8 weeks, maybe 10, probably more realistic right now. And it's a coaching relationship, so we work one-on-one. You learn all of my methods. Like, we kind of focus on 4 big picture steps. So the first is the core method. So that's your daily breathwork meditation practice, and like I said before, that's just like one foot in step of the other, walking up the mountain. And then we learn all of my different breathwork hacks. I have a lot of my own techniques, and this is basically so you can start feeling how you want to feel when you want to feel it. So if you're feeling like a 2, you can go straight to an 8 if you know how to breathe right, because the way you breathe changes how you feel, and you send different signals to the brain. It's very simple. But a lot of people don't realize this. We spend hours or days or weeks, sometimes maybe even months or years or decades in depressive states, when actually all we need to do is start breathing differently. And then we actually focus on habitually correct breathing, so you can actually start to feel better without even having to put any conscious effort into it after it becomes a habit, because you'll just be breathing in the best way for you possible habitually. And then we do, much like you did with me, Laura, the psychoactive sessions. And this is really like the catalyst, just to propel you forward, to remove those mental blocks, those limiting beliefs, all of that kind of stuff that's holding you back, so you can do all the other things with less resistance and then gain and yield way better results. Then after that, we kind of just go into everything and optimize your biggest ROI from it, and all your habits and kind of stuff like that, and cater it to each individual. So that's what we're working with right now.
Beautiful. So this is really for the people that are really looking to level up in a large way in a short amount of time using their breath, right? So the core method is to really release. And then, sorry, you said the second portion was?
The second portion. So yeah, there's like different breathing elements. We've got breathwork hacks to change how you feel immediately. We've got the core method just to start releasing on a daily basis to start leveling you up. And then we have the psychoactive sessions to really catapult you forward. And then we have habitually correct breathing to increase that baseline, if you will. And then then we use a lot of other different tools and stuff like that. It's like,
so really like learning skills that people can use on a daily basis to incorporate and to really enhance and bring them to the next level of their performance. And then with the psychoactive stuff, we'll just bring like more kind of the futuristic kind of stuff that's moving them forward into their purpose. So they're really getting like everything that they need in order to be successful. So it makes sense why it works so well.
That's awesome. Yeah, and yeah, so it's good for high performance. It's also good for people that have a specific issue which they'd like to overcome. There's something that's holding them back. So it's typical that like maybe it's stress, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's depression or something like that, and we kind of sort that out first. And then it's like, it's funny how sometimes I have clients, they start off with depression, then by the end of the coaching they've started a business or something. I've helped them with that a little bit as well. It's
so
crazy.
Cool, eh?
So again, it comes down to what we were talking about at the very beginning. It's just like, once you remove these blocks and these things that are holding you back, it just makes everything so much easier.
Yeah, getting through that scatteredness to bring that clarity so that you can actually have the stillness to be able to see, like take those next steps moving forward, feeling confident. It's huge.
Absolutely.
And I guess like the best way to be able to know whether this is for somebody would definitely be to hop on a clarity call. I'm assuming you offer some sort of clarity call or call where people can have a call with you to see if you will align, because they know it's a two-way street, right? Like you want to make sure that you want to work with them and they want to work with you, and you create a contract then to move forward together with this. It's really about doing it together.
Exactly right. Yeah. So I do like a free 20-30 minute call with people, and we kind of just connect and see, one, I can actually help them, and two, like, not to be rude, if I actually want to work with them as well, because
totally.
not everyone is that coachable. You have to be open to new information. You have to be able to execute. You know, like I said, it's a two-way street. And the really exciting thing about the breath is, like, although I'm teaching you how to do it and guiding you through it, sometimes it's really all the healing and progress is coming from the work that you're doing. And that's why it's very empowering to use this breath as a tool.
Yeah, and it's cool too. Like I love breath work because it's truly like, you don't really need to set like a large amount of time to do your breath work, because you can just do it while you're doing your life.
Yeah, like you can just do it. Like, it's about making it a habit. So like my clients now, they were just like, whilst, like you said earlier, like brushing your teeth and you're doing a deeper breath, they're doing it whilst they're like, oh, just before my workout, or just before I hit a cold shower, or when I'm driving, I'll do some like slow, like whatever. It's like, and then like maybe 10 minutes in the morning. So they're actually getting like crazy results in like way less time.
Beautiful. And how is it that people can get a hold of you? What's the best way for people to reach out to you if they do want to book one of these calls with you, or even to start following the content? Because I know you do a lot on Instagram and providing a lot of value on there for people to start tapping into.
Yeah, I'm not the best social media guy, so I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I promise I will get some more platforms at some point, but for right now, it's all I really need. So my Instagram is @it's Joesph Oliver, and my Facebook, I think, is /Coach Joesph Oliver. I do check my DMs. I get quite a lot these days, but I do check them pretty regularly, so I will get back to you. But there is a link that, like, to go ahead and book a call straight away if you want to do that too. I really don't like to spend, I get a lot of questions on, and you probably do as well, Laura, on DMs and stuff like that. I don't really answer questions on there. It's like, if you're actually serious about making a change, then you will take enough action to come and speak to me. And at the time,
for sure,
that's how I like to work it. YouTube and stuff coming very soon. Working on some cool stuff in the background. Cool. Yeah, so all fun and all good and exciting.
Beautiful. Well, I will put all of that stuff in the show notes down below if you're watching the YouTube, or in the podcast down below as well. So thank you so much for coming on here, Joe. Like, honestly, like, it just lights me up so much just to see you making this impact in the world, because it, like, seeing you in this energy and just so, like, you're glowing, like, you're truly glowing. So it just makes me so happy to see, and just experiencing how much breath work has impacted my own personal life as well. It's like, if you really resonate with anything that we shared on today's podcast episode, or if you're watching the YouTube, feel free to reach out to Joe. Obviously, you guys can see he's a super awesome guy that is just very approachable. So if you're serious, like, go for it. Go jump out of your comfort zone to try something new, or even just tap in and follow along with his journey. And just, like, I feel like the more range, and, like, expand your range of the different things that you have within your network, even if it's on your social media feed, the more things that are elevating you on your social media feed, the more you're going to elevate. It's literally osmosis, right? It's like, that's why I'm sure you're the same, Joe. It's like, you're very particular with the people you spend your time with. You're very particular about the different things in your environment, all the things, because we learn so much just through osmosis of our immediate surroundings. So put Joe in your feed, because he's amazing. And if you are somebody who wants to learn more about it, then definitely feel free to reach out to him.
Thank you for saying that. I really, really appreciate that. It's so
welcome.
true. It's like, one thing about coaching, and this is why you have coaches still, I have coaches, we will continue to have coaches for the rest of our life, is just proximity. I've got a guy who asked me to come live with me for a week. He's here right now. You know, we're doing like an hour or two coaching a day, but he's just here just to hang out, because he understands the value of that proximity. And that doesn't have to be in person, that can be online too. So yeah, like Laura said, like, follow people that inspire you, and start just engulfing that lifestyle and making it normal for you. Because, like, sometimes I've had people that, like, it's new to them, and they're in, like, maybe a negative environment, and it's like they're almost like afraid to talk about this, like, kind of like new things that their personal development that they're getting into and stuff like that. It's like, just fully embrace it. And the more you do that, like, the faster you'll get results.
Yeah. One of the biggest things too I learned is, if you don't ask, the answer will always be no. Or, like, Wayne Gretzky, if you never shoot, you'll never freaking score, right? It's like, you just have to jump out, get out of your comfort zone, and ask for what you want, and ask and see how it's given. Like, it literally will always be provided for you if you are willing to ask for it. So
don't forget that as well. Like, you might be like, I want to make $20,000 a month, whatever it might be. And we're like, okay, that might require you got to execute on XYZ, and then that will start to happen. But it was going to require something different than what you've been doing, right? People think it's going to magically appear sometimes. There's always that element of action that is required.
Yeah, if we keep doing what we've always done, we'll always keep having what we have right now. It's just like one of those things. Got to do something new if you want a different result. So any last words for us, Joe? Any last words of wisdom before we end off this episode?
Breathe.
Don't
forget to breathe. It's I'm joking, but seriously, it's the breath is a missing tool for a lot of people. So you can have everything else dialed in, you still don't feel good, maybe still tired. And it's like, if you're doing all this stuff and you don't feel good, then I'm not being funny. What's the point? What's the point of living, right? To be blunt. And I'm not saying it's about feeling incredible 100% of the day. You're still going to feel all of the range of emotions, and they're there, and they're indicators, and they're there for a reason, and they're great, and embrace those. But you can definitely start increasing your baseline and start to shift in your favor. So you start to, like, get more of those better emotions and more like, that's, you know, and the more that you do that, the more that you appreciate life, and the more that it's easier to cultivate gratitude, and the more that, and it's just, it's a positive upward spiral.
Yeah, life truly can keep getting better and better. It definitely can. So thank you so much, Joe, for being on here. And thank you to everybody who is listening to this episode or watching this episode. We appreciate you so much being on here. And thank you so much for just expanding your minds, opening up your hearts to an entirely new way of being, because you truly can create your life exactly how you want it to be if you're willing to go outside of that comfort zone try new things so you can integrate that new way of being. So thank you so much, Joe, for coming on here today and sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge with everybody. And I'm sure we'll have you back on here again at some point, but I just appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much, Laura.
You're so welcome. Okay. Bye, everybody. Have an amazing day.
Peace out.
See ya.